Difficult family members can cause identity crises. Too many people avoid those bad family members, they die, and you live with regret. If you want to have a great relationship and held up that family, you need to watch this video. My name's Nick Tabor. I'm a personal trainer, and I talk about this stuff because I've lived through it. Now, I got this question on Facebook when I asked this among friends, and a couple of clients came up with this. How do you deal with a difficult family member? And especially in this day and age, oh boy, this one comes up quite a bit. You sit at that family table, or nowadays on Facebook, you get that one family member that just keeps posting stuff that is totally contradictory to you, and you're like, well, that's just that person, that's just my aunt, that's just my uncle, that's just my grandfather, or anybody like that, and you're like, oh God. And it causes an identity crisis because you're like, why do I even have this last name? We don't have that, we don't have anything in common. Why should I still keep the name of Tabor? Why should I keep the name of whatever your last name is? We've all kind of been through it at some point because you don't really get what happens. You don't get it. Like, I have an uncle who he lives out on the other side of the country, and he's a good guy. Like, he really genuinely is a good dude. We don't talk a lot because honestly, I mean, perspective, not perspective, but just location in general and lives. We don't get to touch base that too much. But I'm proud to have him as my uncle. He's in this day and age, it's as recording this, it's an election year in the United States. We're on both two opposite sides of the perspective, and when we do get together, it's like, oh God, here we go. Don't talk about guns in front of Uncle Ted. Do not talk about the president. Do not talk about anything else. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, yep. Hey there, yeah, how you doing? And it just, it was hard. It was hard at first, but you know what? I really, really, really enjoy when he comes on. And I really, really like it. And it was some difficult times at first. However, with difficult family members, you've got to understand that nobody's going to think like you. The world doesn't have to think exactly the way you do. And what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we get together. And we understand where we are. Like, we can't avoid people. We can't avoid it. We can't avoid things. And I remember my grandfather, Bill, passed away. One of the biggest regrets in my life was that I didn't talk to him as much. And he was a totally different generation. And it still bothers me to this day that I didn't get to know him as much on things because he was one of the greatest influences in my life, and he had so many good things. I have a quote from him that said, he told me, hard work never kills anybody, it just makes people more interesting. And I loved it. I loved his attitude towards things, and it's just, at one point in my life, I didn't want to have anything to do with him because he had, and nothing awful or any, but his views upon life and the way things should have been were different. And he passed. And I regret it. I still regret it. But what we've got to do is I don't want anyone to have that pain ever again. I don't want to have hard times with people. I cherish my family. I cherish the name Tabor, and I cherish everything that's come from it. Because these people who have been in generations of the past, They've lived their life and I've learned their lessons and it made me who I am. I don't want you to live in the perspective of just regret, and then when these people pass that you have that pain and saying you wish you could. You wish you could have known more. We have a 3-step process in order to help you out. And to be able to deal with difficult family members that you might not relate to so well. Step number 1, you've got to understand their perspective. I'm talking to my uncle from California. Great dude. One of the best things I think he ever did, I actually have a few of his books on my bookshelf over there. And he is just the most admirable thing he did, and I thought it really, really struck a chord with me, is that a lot of people will say, when they go to retirement, they're like, oh, when I retire, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. When he said he retired, he was going to write novels. He did it. There's 4 of them right there. And they're really good. They're awesome. Like, he can write. I'm like, you're good, dude. Thank you. Like, he's awesome, right? But he has a different perspective on guns than I do. He has a different perspective on politics than I do. Why? Because he lives out in California where they're getting taxed like crazy. And he lives in an area where he's going to need to use guns. I live in an area and I live in my life. Like, I live in this apartment, I live on a 3rd floor. We don't really have much taxes at all. It's really fine. I'm like, good, you want to pour more taxes on? Fine. I don't have any children that I need to worry about feeding or anything. So I have more disposable income. I'm good. I am not in a position where I need to have guns. I'm fine. I respect the gun rights and everything, but I'm good. But he is that way because this is the life he led to be able to get to that perspective, and this is why he believes what he believes. Cool. Awesome. Great. And you know what? We may never agree, but there's genuine common respect. When you get to that point, then that's step 2. Find the common ground, respect in your differences. From my perspective, where I had it, my uncle was a dude, and my grandfather, those 2 people have lived a life of a different kind. My uncle is, well into his, I think he's in his 70s, and I'm 35. And he lived a very different life. I even, where I have like, doing this with YouTube was never even a thing. How can we deal with it? What can we do, right? He was, but his perspective was, how he got to it. He has 11 grandchildren who are his world, and he's very, very happy. I'm like, okay, we're never going to agree on political things or hot button issues, but how do you deal with being with the same woman for 40 years. How does that help you? How did you come up with those characters? And how are things like, the nostalgic era of good music? We could talk about that. And my grandfather, you gotta understand, these people are aliens to us. He grew up in the 20s and 30s, and his schooling was a one-room schoolhouse. That's just like, what? Are you serious? I can't even fathom that. The fact that I went to college and did a whole bunch of other stuff just blew his mind, and I do things on the internet and talk. He didn't even understand how to even look at a computer. The nearest computer was miles away from where he lived in rural New Hampshire or something. But it was the thing that he got up and he tended to those chickens. And if you've ever had, fresh chicken eggs right out of a coop, man, those are great. Learning ethics from him like that, he's like understood it, but those are great things that you could deal with, right? Step 3, take as much time as you can with these people. Once you've gone through, you understand their perspective, and you get a common ground, do all you can, and you will never live with regret. You will never regret the time that you spent with them because you knew who they were as a human, and all that little differences, petty stuff, right out of there. All right, so I want you all to have great relationships with people. Be good, right? There's other videos right here that I'd like you to go ahead and take a look at. I will see you there, and I want you to continue to climb, and you click right there.